Hello, everyone. This video is really aimed at people who maybe missed the first introductory Latin session or want a bit of a recap before part two. So I'll just take you back through what we learnt in that lesson, um, hopefully preparing you for part two, which is after half term. So we were talking about why Latin is a really relevant language and exciting language to learn, and why it's really important at Noah Hill. Latin is studied by all Year 7 and Year 8 students. Our Year 7s currently do a combined Latin, Classics and Oracy course, and Year 8s will be doing that next year as well. So we use the Cambridge Latin course, and that's the approach that I'll be using during this particular session. We've just recently invested in the fifth edition, which is much more inclusive. It's very well thought through. There are more female characters than there used to be. There's a much more sensitive treatment of enslavement and so on. It's very much the Cambridge Latin course for the 21st century. Um, our Latinists go on to do GCSE, they go on to A level, they go on to university. And so the Cambridge Latin course is a really good way to prepare them for future study. Wait for the PowerPoint to catch up. Come on, PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. Jumping ahead of us now. One thing I'd like to start with is just by looking at the links between Latin and English. And we'll just take a look at some educational language, which very much reflects that. So you can see these are allegedly Latin words on the screen at the moment, but they all have very clear links with English, particularly in education. So we have science from the word for knowledge. A desk is actually just a big flat thing. Who knew? Obviously, we get words from Liber like library and so on. And I'll just keep putting these up. So I always say to students, you give me a sentence and I'll give you some Latin. And that's very often true, although they do sometimes come across words that they get by me and the whole sentence isn't quite Latin and Greek, but usually they don't manage to catch me out because there is so much Latin in the English language. Okay. So we also talked about Latin all around us and how lots of brand names are Latin and slogans of things like football clubs and the borough of Harrow. For example, the Harrow one, so Salus Populi Suprema Lex, the welfare of the people is the supreme law, which is a quotation from Cicero, who was a famous Roman statesman and lawyer in the first century BC. We went on to look at a few more brand names. So if I put up the vocabulary, there we go. A Volvo, apparently that is just about the wheels because it means I turn. Sony from Sonus meaning sound. ASICS is a really cool one that the students don't always expect. It's simply an acronym for Anima Sana in Corpore Sano, a healthy soul and a healthy body. Amazon Prime, you get it first. So primus means first. Acer, Acer, sharp, energetic, dynamic, good word to name a computer company. And Rubicon's a fun one because it's not really a Latin word, but it is a Roman place. And we tweeted Rubicon to ask whether it was genuinely named after the river in northern Italy. And they said, yeah, sure. And we thought, okay, so it's wet and watery. That's about as close as the connection gets. We had a go at reading a funerary inscription. This is often where we see Latin in the modern world. And here we have the funerary monument of Christopher Wren, where, should you wish to, we can actually use basic Latin here, whoops, to figure out that. There we go. I might go back and just show you. Um, this all just means below is buried the creator, the constructor of this church and city, Christopher Wren, who lived more than 90 years, not Sibby for himself, but for the public good. Reader, if you seek his monument, look around you. And then it goes on to say that he died on the 25th of February in the year 1723 when he was 91. There we are. So, okay, on to some basic Latin. Hopefully, you will find this quite straightforward. If you're not, you don't think of yourself as a linguist, please don't worry. You don't need to know anything. So, when we teach Latin at Noah Hill, we do teach it through a sort of story-based structure. We don't ask the way to the station. We don't sort of talk about how old we are. Instead, we read stories about this particular family, and hopefully, you can see that the structure of these sentences are very similar to what we'd see in English or French or German. Caecilius est pater. Caecilius is the father. Metella est mater. She's the mum. She's the mother. Quintus est filius, Quintus is the son, and Lucia est filia, Lucia is the daughter. If you did Latin a long time ago at school and you don't remember Lucia, don't worry, you're not going mad. She is new. Okay, we get the extended familia in the rest of the sentences. So Romans would have considered enslaved members of their household to be very much part of their familia. So we've got Clemens, a servus. He's the enslaved person in the household, does lots of odd jobs around the place. Grumio est coquus, he's the cook, no less enslaved, but slightly higher, more highly skilled. And Cerberus est canis, so good old Cerberus, the watchdog, doesn't look very healthy, but he's based on a mosaic from Pompeii, so he's meant to be historically authentic. He does seem to spend most of his time sleeping, so there's no real excuse for his skinniness. So then we add a location in, and we start to teach students where people might be doing things in the house. So since lockdown, everybody's been very au fait with things like home offices and studies. So when we say, "Oh yes, pater est in tablino," the father is in the study. Pater in tablino scribit, the father is writing in the study. These days, students immediately go, "Oh yeah, he's working from home." So that's one benefit to lockdown. There may only be one. So we've got lots of other sentences like this. We have all the vocab. You may want to pause the video and have a go. Feel free. Okay, so I'm going to just go through the answers. If you had a go, well done. So for sentences number 16, the mother is in the atrium. The mother is sitting in the atrium. Sedet, we get sedentary from that word. The atrium isn't really a living room. It's more like a principal reception room. 17, filius est in triclinio. Filius in triclinio bibit. The son is in the dining room. The son is drinking in the dining room, reclining on one of these lovely cliched Roman couches. Number 18, filia est in horto. Filia in horto legit. The daughter is in the garden. The daughter is reading in the garden. So legit, legible. 19, servus est in cubiculo. Servus in cubiculo laborat. So the enslaved person is in the bedroom. The enslaved person, of course, is working in the bedroom. And we get words like cubicle from cubiculum because Roman bedrooms are super tiny. Laborat, labor, laboratory, words to do with working. And down we go to number 20. Coquus est in culina, coquus in culina laborat. So again, we'd expect the enslaved members of the household to be working. The cook is in the kitchen. The cook is working in the kitchen. And I did tell you, didn't I? Canis est in via, canis in via dormit. So the dog is in the street and the dog is sleeping in the street. So dormit's always a good word. Our year sevens and eights immediately recognise the link between dormit and dormitory or dormant. And Cerberus at the moment is very dormant. So this is where we get into what I think of as slightly more technical Latin. We start to learn about subject plus object plus verb sentences. Now, Latin is a highly inflected language, which is super helpful because word order doesn't really matter. We really need to pay attention to the endings of words, and they tell us what job the noun is doing in the sentence. So you'll see, for example, that in this sentence, amicus caecilium salutat, caecilium has changed its ending. And that reflects the fact that the friend is greeting Caecilius. And so we can put those words in any order, it will still mean the friend is greeting Caecilius. So in Latin, we call the noun doing the action, the subject of the sentence, the nominative case. And that's the word that you would see in the dictionary. So amicus is the word you would see in the dictionary. That's the nominative. He is doing the action. The action is right at the end of the sentence, like many other languages. Salutat, he is greeting. And then we go back to caecilium in the center. We call that ending the accusative case. It's the direct object of the verb. So his ending changes to to reflect that. So if we change the endings round and you said caecilius amicum salutat, you'd be changing the meaning to Caecilius is greeting the friend. So that's how Latin works, really. That's sort of the nuts and bolts of everything we do from now on. There are some more examples. So, yeah. Now, we haven't got the vocab on the screen at the moment, so I'm just going to talk you through these because you presumably just want a quick catch up. Quintus amicum salutat. So Quintus greets his friend. Same idea. So the ending means it's accusative. Quintus is greeting his friend. The same structure works all the way down. Caecilius, numerat is counting money. There we go. And then C, Metella enters intrat the culinam, the kitchen. D, Canis, the dog, consumit, eats cibum, food. The dog eats food. And lastly, E, the daughter, laudat, praises the cockworm, the cook. So you can see the structure works absolutely the same way all the way down. So you may want to replay that just to get an idea of the basics, but that's really what we learned in the first session of Latin. And we'll proceed on to hopefully look at plurals, maybe the dative case, maybe we'll even get to tenses in session number 2. And we look forward to seeing you either virtually or in person on Wednesday, the 21st of February.